Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the October 26, 2023 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Paul Semple. I'm sitting in for Dave Nixon on this initial start of the meeting. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 632-766-821#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link posted in the agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. I'll start with a roll call poll of the board members to authorize this form of meeting.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I agree.
Randy Potash, I agree.
And David H. Veach, I approve.
I'll ask that any citizens or non-board members participating in the call via phone only for their name and the last 4 digits of their phone number for identification purposes. In considering our procedure, the hearing notice will be read by staff, and representatives or persons individually will present their appeal or application. Anyone in favor of the appeal or application may then speak. The chairman may read all members' letters received by the board. Anyone against the appeal or application may speak or ask a question. The applicant may rebut testimony. Board members may direct questions to anyone present. The board hears then any further information. The board closes the public hearing, deliberates, and votes on the appeal or application. All votes are taken by roll call. At the end of the meeting, to close the meeting via verbal confirmation and note the time of adjournment. We have, I think, as the first item on the agenda, the presentation of proposed West Chatham Neighborhood Center District. So I'll ask the representatives of that group to open us.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Spur. I'm Vice Chair of the Planning Board. I'm sitting in for Catherine Halpern. She was not available for this afternoon's meeting. I'm here also with our planner, Ryan Christenberry. I'm here to present where we're going, how we've gotten this far, and perhaps clarify any challenging issues that you may have. I think Ryan has put together some background on this that steps you back into the beginning of how we came forward with this approach with the form-based zoning. It's different. It'd be the first time that has been applied in Chatham, even though it's not something new that's out there. So why don't we start with some of this background that Ryan can walk you through, and then we'll be more than happy to address any comments or questions you may have.
That sounds fine.
Great. Thank you, Art. So I wanted to just start with an overview of the district's purpose as it currently stands. The Planning Board has been working for quite some time on developing the West Chatham Neighborhood Center zoning as an implementation step of the goals of the Chatham Comprehensive Plan. West Chatham was identified as the second most important commercial district in town, second from downtown. So it's been a priority. The purpose intends to create a stronger connection between the community vision, regulations, and development plans in order to prevent or to have more predictable development outcomes, pardon me. Enhancing the character of the West Chatham area and promote the adaptation of existing buildings and permit redevelopment and revitalization. Promote multimodal, especially pedestrian-friendly design and development. Encourage the creation of a range of housing opportunities that are attainable to year-round residents of all income levels, and provide a mechanism by which residential development can contribute in a direct way to increasing the supply of attainable housing by requiring a minimum 20% inclusionary housing requirement. As Art mentioned, this has been the focus of some planning work going back quite some time. In 2014, the Cape Cod Commission worked with the town to develop the Route 28 Visioning Project. That project looked at the entire Route 28 corridor from the Harwich Town Line to Kroll Road. There are 4 neighborhood centers within that corridor, and the goal was to identify more thoroughly and thoughtfully through zoning those neighborhood centers and then downzone the areas in between in order to prevent sprawl along the corridor. So we have designated the South Chatham District Overlay. The board has, and town meeting has adopted some zoning bylaw amendments in between the Cornfield and West Chatham to downzone from small business to R20. So this has been an ongoing implementation piece for quite some time. In addition to the Route 28 corridor project, the commission had developed a framework for adopting form-based codes. Form-based codes focus on the function and the aesthetic more so than the use. Traditional zoning is a segregation of uses. It hasn't worked very well in terms of providing mixed-use, vibrant economic centers. A form-based code is a way to get back to that neighborhood center. And again, by focusing on the form as your land use regulation, it helps support predictable development outcomes. Here are a couple of graphics from the form-based code as it's currently drafted and proposed. It establishes different minimum frontage requirements depending upon the zones within the district, and there are 3 zones. Again, this is just some more graphic information from the Route 28 Visioning Project. Up on the left is what we have, the development form we have under the existing GB3 standards. The proposed form-based code really pulls the parking to the side and to the rear of the building, making the front street-facing portion of the property more pedestrian-friendly and accessible. This is the proposed district boundary. It's comprised of 37 acres on 53 separate parcels. Approximately 5 acres are located within the RPZ, which leaves 32 acres accessible for development and redevelopment. The district boundary is located along the north and south of the Route 28 corridor, as you can see here, from approximately 500 feet west of George Ryder Road to approximately 250 feet east of Barn Hill. And it encompasses Weldon Way properties to the north. Multifamily is not permitted in Zone A1, which is intended to promote street-level commercial activity. So that blue line along the corridor there, that would be a commercial building typeface and interface with the street, and then the zones deeper into the parcels would be accessible for multifamily. So while form-based code does focus on the form, uses are still an important component of the code. So defining uses that are allowed both by right, by special permit, and those that are expressly not permitted encourages a certain type of development activity within the district. You'll see here that 1 single-family dwelling unit per lot is not a permitted use. However, multiple detached single-family structures would be permitted on 1 lot under the multifamily use provision. In Chatham, the ZBA has special permit granting authority for most special permits within the zoning bylaw. You also provide special permit relief when there's a pre-existing non-conforming situation or for variances. This proposal identifies the planning board as the special permit granting authority for special permit uses only within the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. If properties need zoning relief through a pre-existing non-conforming circumstance or for a variance, those would continue to be reviewed and approved by this board as is currently proposed. I think the reason that the planning board has suggested they be the special permit granting authority for this district is because it's predominantly commercial mixed-use developments with a lot of parking, landscaping, complex site plan review aspects that they deal with fairly regularly through their regular site plan review process. And I'll just note that the HBD jurisdiction remains unchanged as a result of establishing this district. There is one exception that's noted here, that for pre-existing non-conforming structures doing minor expansions up to 200 square feet, that could be done through a site plan review process, or pardon me, a staff plan review process, so that would not, as it's currently proposed, be under your jurisdiction, but we can certainly talk more about that. So as I mentioned, single-family uses are not currently allowed within the district in terms of one single-family home per lot. It's really intended to be a mixed-use, vibrant commercial district with sort of housing top-of-shop type of development patterns. And that's my summary. Happy to talk through any questions and try to answer those today, or at least get back to you in the future with anything we can't answer.
Okay, thank you. I opened it to the board to see if we have any questions concerning the proposal, at least as I understand it. Want to start with Ginny?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. That was really helpful, and you as well, Art. I have a couple questions. The form-based code, I think that's what you called it, parking in the rear, is that just for residential, or is that also planned for commercial, the parking in the rear?
It would be for commercial as well.
So that whole, you're envisioning that whole district to be parking in the back,
Correct.
And on side too.
on the side?
So there's certain applications where if the proposed building met the setback section and there was an entrance on the right for a driveway access, they could have parking on the side there. However, the building still needs to be the main focus along the frontage.
Thank you. Question you made about the special permits. Could you repeat why you think it should stay with the planning board? You said primarily, do you have, I think you had a chart, but do you have a percentage of what is commercial, what is residential, and what is mixed?
So there are a handful of uses that are allowed by special permit, as listed in the use table. You'll see here formula business establishments, motels, hotels, and inns, mixed-use developments, and multifamily developments, dwellings, so such as townhouses, duplexes, et cetera. It's fairly common for special permit granting authority across cities and towns in Massachusetts to be shared by both the planning board and the ZBA. I'd say Chatham is unique in that it doesn't. And because these are larger, sort of complex site plan review applications that we would anticipate seeing, that's very much sort of in the planning board's wheelhouse in terms of the projects that they look at on a regular basis.
So is this chart the actual West Chatham breakdown, or is this just a general breakdown?
This is what's
Okay.
proposed for West Chatham Neighborhood Center.
All right, so maybe this is just the accounting background in me, but there's this really fundamental business practice, which is segregation of duties, which is really important, not just in, I mean, running a town is a business, where the group that has the authority for granting the authority, you know, shouldn't be the authority that's granting their authority. So, you know, this is for effectiveness and this is for risk control. So it just struck me as a little unusual, that you would be, this is your proposal, you're planning, and then you'd be granting the authority to yourself to grant the authority for the permits. It just, any discussion that you had about that? Or you mentioned there are other towns that do it. How do they solve for that?
Well, so I've heard that comment before and that concern. And I will just say that, you know, statutorily directed by Mass General Law, the planning board is the recommending authority for all zoning bylaw amendments. So they are either the petitioner of the amendment to town meeting, or they recommend a citizen's petition to town meeting, and then therefore enact whatever duties are prescribed to them within that bylaw. And I think most communities that I've worked in, especially here on the Cape, the planning board is a special permit granting authority just for uses in certain types of special permits. Open space residential design is a current special permit planning board use and process within Chatham. So it's not without precedent. I don't know why it's evolved the way it has here over time, but I don't think that there's any concern for the board applying this zoning bylaw if it's adopted by town meeting.
Can I just add one point to that? These are going to be more complex sites. We anticipate that. We anticipate that there's going to be not just a single use on it, there'll be multiple uses. There'll be multiple structures on there. One of the things that we were concerned about is going to multiple boards for something as challenging as some of these sites may be. That would be the prerogative, of course, of the developer. If the developer just wanted to do something simple, that's pretty straightforward. The points that the way we develop this bylaw are we're trying to encourage certain types of development here, as much as we can as of right. And to avoid sending a developer to multiple boards for an approval that could generally be handled by a single entity. Now, I agree with Ryan. We don't want to get into the whole variance piece on that. That's absolutely stays away from our board. But once we get into the uses and how they're arranged and all the different aspects of that, if that's the only thing they have to do and they can comply with all the dimensional requirements and everything else, then they would go to a single board, a single application. And that would at least facilitate the process a little bit. But we're not trying to actually step into any other area of authority or oversight.
So, for example, are there any historic buildings on that stretch? So you would not be going to historic for discussion about that piece, or?
So there may be, it depends if so HBD jurisdiction is unchanged by what's proposed here. And if a property meets the Historical Commission's criteria for being an historic building, any alteration would be required to go through their review and approval process as well.
So I'm just not understanding the piece. I appreciate what you're saying, Art, but we would only be talking about what we would normally do, which is we wouldn't be talking about new development. We wouldn't be, we would, why, I don't understand why wouldn't we keep doing what we do for all the rest of Chatham? I'm just not understanding why that's carved out.
Well, let me answer the Historic Commission piece. We don't want to get into that part of the business because it's mostly dealing with the buildings themselves, okay? However, once you get into this part of it, they're going to have to come before both boards then in order to just get a special permit approval. And most of the issues associated with this would be how they arrange everything on site and everything else. Now, if they're looking for a dimensional variance, that's different. That's not something that we're looking to do. That would still continue to fall to your board.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Lee?
Thank you very much for that presentation. Could you give me just do you envision maybe taking a existing building, an existing business, an existing structure, and adding either up, out? Could you give me an example, just hypothetically, of something that might happen with all of these code forms?
So I think if you can picture the district, there's quite a few
Form-based.
commercial properties that are set back a fair distance from the street. A redevelopment potential would allow them to pull closer to the street. There could be apartments above, there could be apartments in the back. So the opportunity is to redevelop and create infill development, I think, with what's existing there. Whether property owners take advantage of it or not, it's entirely up to their discretion. But it would create opportunities to redevelop existing buildings closer to the street and with a mix of uses, potentially housing on top.
Is there one owner, a major owner that owns one of the larger malls, maybe the Chappahoy? I mean, I have no idea. Are there some big owners that are involved and that you all could work with, or?
Certainly, I mean, I think that Chappahoy Plaza is a large property under one ownership. 1610, we understand the ownership there. So there are some larger parcels, and it's important to point out that what Art's comment about the planning board's review process, site plan review would still be required for all of these, even if it's a by right use. They would have to go through the planning board's site plan review criteria. So there is process. None of this happens without town staff oversight and board oversight.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, Avij?
Yeah, I guess and I think, Ryan, maybe you referenced this, but I didn't remember. I mean, there has, at least in the past, I don't know if it's current, been other things in the bylaw where the planning board was the special permit granting authority. It wasn't like multi-use or flexible. I'm not sure. It just seems to me that in my memory, at least, there have been instances in Chatham. Is that currently true?
So the planning board is still the special permit granting authority for open space residential development.
That's what I was
We
thinking,
don't
yeah.
see a lot of them.
Right.
But so again, there have been other areas where the planning board grants special permits for larger land use functions rather than site-specific nonconformities, et cetera.
And,
Oh, and the flex. Thank you, sir.
and I'm not, I mean, so I understand, and I think I understand too some of the arguments for having the planning board be the SPGA for something like this. Our role, when I'm not quite clear on this, our role would be certainly if anything got into dimensional variances, we would continue to have that role. What about other types of, are there other situations where somebody might be seeking to do a pre-existing non-conforming and see us on that basis as well?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So we keep some of that, and then the planning board would be doing, I mean, I do understand, just to comment a little bit, I mean, this, to me, this type of, with this proposal, with this form-based code, and what you're seeking to do in providing the incentives is, in my mind, probably quite a bit different from much of the rezoning that took place in Chatham that brings so much activity to us. And so we sit in generally in applying the state law and the town bylaw to those situations that were previously developed. And if this is a different kind of proposal, this is really seeking to actively provide incentives to kind of remake whereas I don't think it was ever the intention of town meetings to actually make something that had been R20 into all R60 or R40 or something when they rezoned those. I think that probably the intention was that this board was here to help look at all those on a case-by-case basis. I don't think I have any other questions right now. Dave, Paul.
Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. So thank you for your presentation, and I'm going to go on Saturday because I find that I learn the most from the community questions, because I've been here for going on 10 years, which is like 10 minutes compared to others. So I'm gonna go to that, so I won't keep you too long on questions, but I like the idea that, that Lee brought up to try to breathe life into how something would work. So let's say, it was like a little gift shop that recently closed, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So let's just assume somebody bought that, and now they wanna tear it down, and they wanna build a house. Is that, and this, just say, for example, this passed, the answer would be no?
Correct. One single-family dwelling per lot would not be permitted within the district.
Even though they bought it not knowing that? That could happen, that's just,
Theoretically, that could
yeah,
happen.
buyer beware. Sure.
Yes.
Okay, and what if they wanted to build a business and then put housing on top? That would be in the game?
Yes.
Yes? And then they'd be able to pull it closer to the street, that type of thing? Okay, and then, I kind of lost my, when you develop something to take to town meeting, is it gonna be like all or nothing for town meeting? Are you gonna explain now the ZBA is not gonna have full, function here? Are you gonna explain every aspect of that? And do they have to bite the whole thing? Or can they say, we like the plan, but we still wanna keep it with the ZBA? I'm not saying I wanted to, I haven't heard anywhere near enough to develop an opinion. But I'm wondering if it's gonna be a menu or if it's gonna be all one.
So I think we're trying to gauge people's concerns with the current development, or current zoning proposal. It is proposed as a district that would be a new district. It would replace entirely the GB3 underlying zoning. So that's sort of an all or nothing, but certain elements of the zoning as it's proposed, such as what we're talking about here, special permit granting authority, that's continuing to go under discussion through the public outreach piece.
If somebody wanted to move to amend something right at town meeting, that type of thing could happen, perhaps?
Yes.
I'm not saying it's going to, I'm just, just
We're
kinda-
hoping to do our homework ahead of time to prevent that scenario, but
I'll leave it at that for now, thank you.
thank you.
Why don't I ask a few questions, and then I'll turn it over to our normal chair so that he can ask his questions, Dave Nixon. But let me just get a feel for, I see the end result as being potentially a very desirable end result, but what I'm having a little trouble understanding is there any impetus from the current owners of any of these properties to do this? I mean, is there any indication that they want to do this, they want to revise what's there and adopt the kind of zoning that you have here?
So there have been a number of community outreach workshops over this, over the past 10 years, right? The study that launched this effort began in 2014. I don't have with me here today the comments from those workshops, but I know property owners have been engaged over the years and have participated in that effort. At this current stage, I have not heard from anyone particularly about where we are and under what's proposed, but I know there's been a long history of outreach with property owners in the district.
There is no indication that the owners of properties that are there now are anxious to move closer to 28, put the parking behind them, and establish some other kind of an arrangement, either with housing above or in any other arrangement.
Yeah, there's there's no reason for them to actually abandon their current businesses on site. That we don't expect to be, the wholesale change that's going to occur. We do think that it's possible that this gives other opportunities here for creating what we're trying to do with a village center. With a village center, you need a mix of both commercial and residential. Right now, there really isn't that mix to make it what would be considered and we envision to be a village-type center where we're mostly walking. There was work done by the planning board and tried to get some adjustments to, for example, the Route 28 project to make sure that that was going to be pedestrian-friendly if possible with the pathway as well as, sidewalks on both sides, lighting and that. Those are all aspects that build on that. So it's not just one piece. So each element sort of works together on it. I think if someone comes before us, we're going to want to encourage one thing or another. If they're just all going for commercial, we're going to say, well, what about a residential element to it? Because that's going to create a more lively village center type atmosphere. That's the desire here on it. It wouldn't surprise me a bit, from my experience, that once you put something like this in place, the residential component starts to be the first component of what gets developed, and some of the commercial and business would add to it afterwards. Now, in this particular case, since there is development already that's a lot of commercial, what we might be seeing is a rebalancing of this and creating some more residential pieces on this. So we spent a lot of time trying to come up with what is the right strategy for us, what did we want to see of the type of residential components in it, and that's how we ended up. Took us another year to actually get that flushed out and worked out. It's sort of driving what Ryan has been working on with Gloria with the affordable housing component. So we sort of pushed the envelope on that to get it into this because we think it's something that's important for not just this center, but also other areas of Chatham.
Do you have any feedback on whether this is economically viable for someone who is looking, let's say they're looking at coming in and purchasing Shop Ahoy Plaza or some portions of it? Does it make sense for them economically to put buildings closer to the road and some kind of housing above it?
Well, I think some sites are not going to lend themselves to doing that. Others would. So Shop Ahoy might not be the right example on that because they're probably fully built out. So that might not lend itself to adding any component to it. But there's other properties there that have not been fully developed in relationship to the uses that we've defined in the ability to perhaps add residential components. The residential components do generate an ability for them to do other things on the site. That's some of the experience that we have found that is helpful for creating this, and that's why we took the time to make sure that the residential component was worked and included as part of this.
Have you, in doing your research for this project, had an opportunity to look at any other locations where this type of zoning was adopted and revised an area along the lines of what you're looking for?
So form-based code is a Main Street revitalization zoning approach, I would say. Not that this is an example that is related to Chatham, but Hyannis Main Street has adopted a form-based code to try to revitalize certain sections of Main Street. It's a tool that does exactly what Mr. Veach was saying. We're not trying to stop something, we're trying to encourage something with a rezoning effort. So it does create an incentive. Certain property owners may not take advantage of that incentive. Others who are looking to build housing may very much take advantage of that incentive. Mm-hmm. So that would be my characterization. The other form-based code, I think Orleans is looking at form-based code for the Governor Prince area redevelopment. So it's a growing planning tool, I think, across the Cape.
In thinking ahead to town meeting and trying to present this to town meeting, it seemed to me that one of the things I had difficulty in sort of wrapping my head around is exactly what is this going to look like? How is it going to build out? When you're talking about the facades and so forth, I had difficulty envisioning it actually happening. So I was thinking that in promoting it to town meeting in one way or another, you're going to need to provide an illustration of what could be done that might actually make some sense to people, and they'd say, well, yeah, I could see that happening and going forward, as opposed to establishing a zoning district and then saying, this is what you're going to have to do, people do it, and then nobody does it. You know, in a way, it's a little bit like an ADU, that we adopt the ordinance, but then nothing happens with it. So I had that concern. The other concerns I had were, I don't know whether you're going to tighten up your terms. I assume in some ways you are, but when you talk about payment of a percentage of the cost, I didn't see any definition of cost. And I don't know whose cost you're talking about.
That's for the inclusionary and incentive zoning section.
Yes,
So the cost is, and maybe we need to tighten up the language, but the cost is the cost of a development, of a unit within that development.
so it's the cost of a unit in development, including land?
So whatever the cost of that to develop that unit of housing would be.
Yeah, it's the building part of it, though. It's not all the rest of the site development pieces.
And it's the developer's cost?
For the payment in lieu?
Yes.
Yes,
So the developer would provide you with an estimate as to what that cost is?
as part of their building permit application, yes.
And then something in lieu of that would be a possibility for them?
For 5 units or less, it would be a fractional payment in lieu. If there's a developer looking to take advantage of the density bonus as it's currently written, you have to build the units. There is no payment in lieu option. You have to build the deed restricted units.
And your concept with respect to the planning board being the special permitting authority, I understand that is done in some other towns, not so much here. Is that really only because of the nature of the commercial development itself? The density of parking and buildings? Or are there other aspects of it than that?
Well, we've put a lot of components together that we want to have a developer consider as part of this. So it's not just, well, you just do X amount for parking and you set back your building and there you go, you're done. That's not the way we believe it's gonna work in here. There's gonna have to be a streetscape component if they're, again, fronting along Route 28. And the components that they're actually gonna put in there. Again, the idea is we wanna make sure that they're trying to engage any of the anybody who walks by the business or or who lives there. There is a component about how the parking can be managed differently than what you have elsewhere. If you take a look at in the downtown area right now, well, you got parking that's connected together and it's multiple uses and shared. Those are the components that we're trying to encourage in here. But those things have to be planned and looked into as a planning and visionary type component. So if there is a development which is going to occur next to it and next to that, there is a shared parking component as well as a link parking component that would be important, that be planned on. So those things get looked into as elements that need to be part of the overall plan that the developer puts in. We can inject as a planning board then, with the help of Ryan as part of our planner, of how we could see this moving down to the next parcel and the next parcel. How would that all work? So that at the same time that we're trying to get parking in there, we're not necessarily trying to go crazy with parking by looking at it from a single lot by a single lot basis. We're looking at this as a whole holistic picture. That means that there's no reason to have a single lot by single lot look at parking. We can look at it holistically by shared. If the different use that comes in next door can share the parking with the adjacent use, we want to encourage that so that we don't have to put in more parking. I'd like to put in more landscaping if I could, or some other avenues. So those are the things that we would be working with all the applicants that come before us, so that when the first person that comes in, they may have an advantage, but the next one and the next one, they're gonna have to think about all those other aspects, because they're gonna be asked about how they're gonna be able to accomplish that by not just putting more pavement in as an example if they don't need to.
How is that different from the way the planning board and zoning board work on commercial developments and parking and so forth now?
So, I mean, when you're granting special permit relief to a project, it's typically through a pre-existing non-conforming dimensional relief, right? I mean, parking isn't necessarily something that you grant relief on through your special permit process, or looking at parking, if I'm, I mean.
I mean, that's done by the planning board now, and basically, it's not an area that we normally get into. So, how is that affected by granting the special permitting function to the planning board in this section? What's
Well,
different?
Well, I think it's going to be the mix of uses that are going to be on the site. It's not a single use. We expect that there's going to be a mix of uses.
Okay. Thank you. David, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, I'm sorry I came to the meeting a little late. I have a couple of issues. This business about paying in to eliminate having to have a 1 unit or 2 or whatever it might be. Why is that a good thing? Why shouldn't it be, look, if you want to do this, you have to play ball with what we're trying to do here.
So the planning board has had a lot of discussion recently over the inclusionary and incentive affordable housing, attainable housing piece of this. I would say that it's still evolving. Payment in lieu is a component of that is an incentive for a developer, but it brings with it some concerns for the board members, right? I mean, if there's an increase in density allowance in this area, the board has been very explicit that they want the units to be built and they want them to be attainable to year-round residents. So some of this I will have to defer until our housing director is back that can speak to, the powerful incentive that a payment in lieu can be in terms of challenging economic climates for development. If you want the units to be affordable and attainable, creating incentives to allow developers to build to that level of density and to establish those units as affordable and attainable, a payment in lieu as a component of that. It's a mechanism to do that.
Yeah, the affordable component on this is twice of what it is existing right now in Chatham.
Yes.
That was a lot of discussion, excuse me, by our board about all of that. We were interested in pushing the envelope on that. So this is applicable to just the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. I think Ryan and Gloria are going to be working for this as a whole umbrella for the whole town of Chatham. But we did not want to wait for that, which could be another year or two before we actually flush all of the issues out associated with that. We thought that this is important enough to include in here, and we put a really high amount of what we were looking for in there. I was sort of surprised that, when you build 10 units in residential, one of them is affordable. Well, And most of the time, what we've seen as a board is there was a payment that was made, and it was usually underpayments as far as what our experience is. So we've really changed that whole process in here so that if you only go up X number to like 9 or what it is today, and you don't have to pay anything until you hit that 10th one, that wasn't good enough for us. We wanted some skin in the game right up front, right off the bat. So it starts at 2 units on this. So if somebody puts 2 units on, they got it. And we weren't expecting that a 50% would be a requirement where it would be one affordable and one regular market rate. That's probably pushing the envelope a little bit too much. So we're starting out at what we have right now, which is a 20% element. And then if you're going to take advantage of the next tier of that, it's going to be a 25% affordability that you're going to have to put in. And we're even looking at if there's anything different in it, or if it grows beyond that, it could be even higher percentage. So we're trying to encourage actual requirements to build it. So if they get to that threshold of 5, they got to build that unit, and it's got to be the first unit. So that's a new requirement too that we're putting in as part of this. But in the meantime, if they can't physically build that much, and they only can build 2 units or 3 units, we want them to contribute to it so that this could be used elsewhere. The funds could be used elsewhere. So that's something that's new of what we've just included in this. That is not any place else that I know of in the zoning. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
What's to protect those affordable units from being bought by speculators?
Permanent deed restrictions. They would be permanently deed restricted as part of the special permit process.
I have a couple more questions. Ryan, I think you mentioned that this West Chatham neighborhood was number 2 vis-à-vis downtown number 1. Is there any more context on why that's number 2?
The comprehensive plan identified it as the second most important commercial area in town, second from downtown. I don't know beyond that.
Maybe proximity to downtown. Also, as I'm looking at this, diagram that you have on, that left-hand side, is there, other than residential above a commercial space, is there any space on that the southern side of 28 that's residential only?
Yes, there are a
Yes.
couple of residential properties on the southern side.
Yeah, I think it's down on George Ryder Road South, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And then conversely, on the northern side, is there any commercial on that side other than the job lot? Or is that whole, it's highly residential on that side? Or, not residential, only residential and actually mostly open space, undeveloped space?
It's currently zoned R20, some of those northern parcels, and they are undeveloped, correct?
So that's primarily your focus, because that's undeveloped, right?
There's the
Which-
greatest potential
Yeah.
there, for sure, yes.
Is there a variety of owners on those different parcels, or is it primarily owned by 1 or 2 people?
Multiple owners, as far
Multiple.
as we know.
Multiple, yeah.
So multiple. Okay, and then I'm assuming, and this, I'm gonna also try to go to the learning session on Saturday. So this is really, I was just out of curiosity, it's really outside of what I know anything about. But I'm assuming there was an impact of the density, you brought that up a couple times, the proposed density. Is that impact study part of what is gonna be discussed on Saturday, or that?
So there was a build-out report that was done in connection with the Route 28 visioning project, and it did a build-out analysis and recommended 4 units per acre as the appropriate level of density for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center.
But I'm thinking more impact to our resources, traffic, water, waste, those kinds of things? Is that all part of what's in there?
Yes.
And that'll be talked about on Saturday?
That's not the intention to talk about the build-out analysis on Saturday, but we can certainly try to answer questions that people may have. All of these documents are available on the Planning Board's webpage. Again, this has been a long history of planning analysis and studies, and sort of meeting people where they are in the process is a bit challenging to know
Yeah,
who
and
has the
I'll
history and who
admit, I'm
doesn't, but
New to this, so, okay, I'll look into that more. It just was a question, and I assumed you'd had that study, John, but I think that would be interesting. Okay, that's all I have.
Just a couple more things that came to mind for me. One, Jenny, with your question about the sides of the street, and currently on one side it is R20. I remember commenting, the board has, it had been before us previously with some proposals relative to this West Chatham district, and at that time, they were still showing, they were showing residents still where it currently is, and then the rest of it being commercial. And my comment, and I think Bill as well, who was on the board at the time, commented that I thought, I questioned that. I mean, if we were putting a residential zone directly across the street from a commercial zone didn't make a lot of sense to me, in that sense, you know. I think, so I was pleased to see that the board responded in a way that they made it more consistent, each side of the street coming along there. And then the other thing that I've thought of, and is that, and probably there's awareness in the room, but I think maybe when the first proposal came around for the, with respect to the ADU bylaw, I think initially the planning board was suggesting that they would be the special permit granting authority for the ADU bylaw. And I know a few citizens took some issue with that and basically said, we want the ZBA to be the one. So that there is some history there with that. I personally think in this case, especially when you look at what the planning board does already with site plan review and stuff, I really see the affinity for going up, having them do the special permit granting stuff with a lot of this as opposed to what we do, and us keeping the part that we do.
One more thing, you don't have to answer this, but this just really keeps resonating to me, is that you very nicely, staff has helped the planning board develop this bylaw. And so if somebody applies, they're gonna go to staff first, right? And then if you say, that doesn't exactly fit in the way the bylaw is now, so you need to go to planning for a special permit. Is that how that would work?
So no, the bylaw prescribes the dimensional area requirements, et cetera. The planning board can't deviate from that. Once it's adopted through the bylaw, that's the bylaw. The
Okay.
planning board is just approving the use by special permit and can put any conditions upon that use by special permit.
Would you be looking at any certain criteria?
Yes. So
We can
all
talk
the
about that maybe
language.
Saturday or
Okay,
whatever.
sure.
But so there'd be criteria that the planning board would, and people would know that in advance.
Yes.
And it would be part of the bylaw.
Did you all get a copy of the zoning?
I got a
I
copy of
think it's
something.
15 pages.
Yeah, maybe I forgot to read that part, or I forgot about it. I
That
read it
prescribes
last week.
everything that a development would be subject to.
Does
within-
it say criteria and then,
More or less.
okay, so that would be important. All right, because the way the thing is, Jay looks at an application and Sarah and that group, and they say you need to go to ZBA, but they didn't help us develop a bylaw. So do you see what I mean? But it sounds almost like everybody's gonna have to go straight to planning, not to staff?
I don't think that's the case. I think everyone comes before planning and community development first. And
Yeah.
they want to get an understanding, and that's their first pass to actually get feedback associated with this. So I know that Ryan deals with just about everybody that comes in the door before it even comes before our board.
So it's already like that. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Do you anticipate that you will have the same notice to abutters and others in town pending your decisions at the planning board level about the uses and parking and so forth, even in the ones where you have a 30-day time frame for making a decision?
If it's a special permit, we're required to follow Mass General laws for the issuance of special permits, including a notification of abutters, parties in interest.
And you do have a provision in here, don't you, where you act within 30 days on a proposal that you consider to be more or less minor?
Sorry, I'm just trying to follow the questions. Can you point to the section you're talking about, please?
Let me see if I can find it.
That is specifically for the staff review process that I had highlighted on the screen regarding alteration of pre-existing non-conforming structures up to 200 square feet.
Right.
So that would be an administrative review that's proposed just for those discrete, smaller additions, alterations.
And do those require notice to any abutters?
No, they would be done by a staff review process as it's currently drafted.
Okay, thank you. I think that may wrap up our conversation with respect to the West Chatham Neighborhood Center District. Dave, do you want to move on to the regular meeting with approval of minutes, or?
No, I think I'm just gonna ask the members for a statement if they wish to make it about what they've heard. They might not wish to make a statement, but it could be helpful if they wish to. So, Randy,
I would like to reserve a statement until after I hear more from the community. I think this is somewhat makes sense for big projects to be with planning. I understand that, but I think there's a lot of details still to put forward to the applicants that they would have to, understand a very sequential way to go about it. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure you're there yet. You might be, and I'm missing it, but something predictable for people that apply.
I think this is the main thing the impression that I have, and I think I said this to a certain degree earlier, is that this proposal is very much different than many of the past zoning changes that have been proposed in town, in terms of its scope and what they're looking to do. And there's a lot of it that I look at, it seems to make sense to me. I'm not sure, what kind of issues are gonna run into, and I kind of tried to think through the meshing of this new model, if you will, versus what's already there. And there's been some questions about that, and I think that'll be an interesting thing going forward. But I do think that especially the housing component is a critical piece of this, because, for the longest time, the only apartments essentially that have been allowed in town have been incidental to commercial use throughout the entire town. And so this is part of the reason why I think, I'm not sure where Chatham stands with respect to other towns on the Cape, but I don't think we're anywhere near the top of responding in terms of workforce, ADU, or affordable housing. And I stand behind that effort and when I see, and especially when I see that being a part of this, it makes a lot of sense, and I'd like to see it worked out in a way that's acceptable to the town, because I think it could be a great benefit to the town for that reason, if nothing else. Thanks.
Ginny?
Yeah, I agree with Randy and Dave. Still a lot of uncertainty in my mind. There's been a lot to comprehend in the pre-reads and what you presented today. Appreciate what you did present today and giving us the opportunity to hear it and ask questions. So, I don't know what I don't know, but the one area that I brought up at the beginning that I still just feel, the big picture planning, of course, but when it comes to, I think, what we already do in town for the rest of the town, I still don't know that I understand that segregation of responsibility and why that wouldn't be an asset to the town as opposed to carving that out, so.
Lee?
Yes, thank you. Very nice presentation. And I agree with my colleagues. I agree that the West Chatham needs a little help, a little sprucing up. And if the affordable workforce housing can be a part of it, I'm all for that. I think you guys have got your work cut out for you, or somebody has their work cut out for us. But I thank you for your work, and best of luck.
Oh,
Well, I'll echo my colleagues' comments that we all see this as ultimately a nice end. And certainly the housing component, as Dave pointed out, is very important. We definitely want to try and encourage that. I still have a little feeling of if we adopt this zoning, it will happen. And I'm not sure whether that is being driven by the economic forces that will actually make it happen, or how much of it is, in effect, wishful thinking. I would like it to be something that can be shown at town meeting to be practical and implemented in other locations potentially, so that you can point to that and say, hey, we had this hesitancy too. It's a different concept. It's not something that's familiar, that it's easy to wrap your head around, but it did work, and it took us this amount of time to do that. Certainly, helping to promote that would be using some of the people who are involved in the economic development in town, who would support it and say, yeah, this is viable. This is something that we might well do if it's available to us by way of zoning in the West Chatham area. And, we all know the numbers of people. There aren't a whole lot of them that are doing economic development in the downtown area on a building basis. There may be 10, 15 people who are doing that. If you could get some of those views and present them, that would be significantly important, I think.
well. What I haven't heard yet is input from the major property owner on the north side. And we know what lot he owns and understand that he's got flyers on a couple of the others. So I would really like to see what he feels the build-out should be.
Well, just a point of clarification, we have not advertised a public hearing. This is not in a recommendation stage to town meeting. Property owners have not been notified. We are just doing public outreach to understand what the concerns are just within different boards and committees that may be affected by this proposed zoning change. So I fully think that we would learn more once we get into a more formal process. This is still a very informal discussion at this point.
Well, to me, that's an integral part of the next step.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, That concludes our discussion with respect to the proposed West Chatham Neighborhood Center District. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes for a meeting held September 28, 2023. I'll recognize Dave Veach.
Yes, I'd like to move approval of the minutes with the note that Paul Semple's name occurs in a couple places in the draft we have, and he was not in attendance. So it's to take his name and then note that he was the member absent for that meeting. Propose that.
Second.
Okay, need a vote on that. Let's see, voting today, I don't know if it's Lee? Lee's voting today, okay. Lee?
I vote to approve those.
I'll abstain since I was not here.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
And me too. Okay. So I think we're going to take a 10-minute rest, and then we'll return for the rest of the meeting. How's that?
Paul already read this, so we're good to go.
Okay, good.
Katie would like it, especially with variances, not so much special permits, if the, oh, thank you for the, oh, yeah.
The check, thank you very much. Was it preferred cash? Well, yeah, thank you. How are you, sir? I'm great. Not entirely, but. What do you need? Oh, it's gonna be continued. Oh. Huh. We can push it through if you want. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. All right. How's your finger?
Oh, I thought you were back. I skimmed down the balance. It's sore, but it's, and it's camera ready with this little. Now, the thing is, it's so right there, you're just bumping it all the time, and it's, what I had this was a pretty bad slice. I thought I was gonna have to go and get stitches, but I didn't, so I'm just taking care of it myself, but
So you took care of yourself, good for you.
yeah, yeah.
All right. All right. No more throbbing.
No, it's
All right.
it's sore today, Thursday, so Sunday will be a week, it's getting there.
Well, 2 yeses can't be bad. What do you think?
So, that happens. Make sense. And I echo them.
Yeah, you know, she can do something.
Oh, yeah, I don't see that one.
I mean, we are.
Oh, no, no, okay, okay. I don't think, I think it's gonna stand the time. I didn't say it when
And I didn't,
I said, it's not go down like a cold beer on a Saturday afternoon, but it doesn't mean it won't be
it's
out.
not bad, and it's not, she always does a nice job.
But the front,
The front, I agree, the front.
okay, so maybe that'll save the day.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to throw.
Well, Maureen,
Well, they're gonna throw a lot.
they're gonna get out of
Chantel, that looks better than my drink. Much better.
Yeah, we're having another girl.
I do not,
Okay, welcome back, everyone, to today's Town of Chatham CBA meeting. The date is October 26th. Well, did we do the minutes? We did. Okay. All right,
Application number 23-089, Margaret and Christopher Walker, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 31 Gillis Road, also showed on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 4C, Block 16A, Lot E3. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the reconfiguration of a first-floor deck and the construction of a second-floor deck. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in that it is located 1.1 feet from the southeasterly abutter and 10 feet from the easterly abutter. The proposed deck will be non-conforming and they will be located 9 feet from the southeasterly abutter and 11.5 feet from the easterly abutter, where a 15-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage will remain 1,774 square feet, 13.6%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 13,063 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Mr. Litchfield.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of the applicants, Margaret and Christopher Walker. In discussions with Sarah over the last couple of days, it was determined that a re-advertising would be appropriate. Accordingly, we would ask that this matter be continued until December 21, the date that Sarah suggested, and I'll be happy to sign the appropriate extension form. If it's necessary, it may not be.
I will move to grant the requested continuance to December 21, 2023.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that, Lee?
Yes.
Paul?
All vote yes.
Yes,
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Twenty-three -088, please.
86. Pine Tree. So we just did that one.
Oh,
And then Jamie.
okay. Okay.
Application number 23-086, Richards Living Trust, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owner of property located at 27 Pine Tree Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 3C, Block 26, Lot B3. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling and proposed addition comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Mass General Law, of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,460 square feet, 9.8%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,109 square feet, 14.1%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 14,961 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sarah. Pardon me, Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Jean and Linda Richards, who through a trust own this home at 27 Pine Tree Road, South Chatham. Some of you, the more senior members of the board, may remember that the Richards were before you back in 2019 to demolish a home that they'd owned for a number of years and to build what you see now. And at the time, a member of the board asked why the former non-conforming structure, which was replaced with a conforming one, why it would be shifted slightly to the east, and the answer was to allow room for an eventual return to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a garage. And that is why we are here today. Sarah, if you'd be kind enough to put up the elevations or the front elevation, if you look at, and I know you've been out to the site, to the left of the main house, there is a lower area which looks sort of like a breezeway to connect to a garage. The garage was not built because it wasn't requested at the time, but we propose today to build a garage. To the left of the front elevation there, that sort of has a feel of a breezeway connecting to a garage, and that is exactly what we propose now. And perhaps if the proposed could be put up, that would also, yes, that one. And that is what is proposed to the left. We'll extend the breezeway area out and build a small and simple garage to the left, which will be completely conforming as to setbacks, coverage, and otherwise. So I'll go into the criteria as to adequacy of site, including building coverage and setbacks. Our lot is nearly 50% larger than any of the other lots on Pine Tree. I think you can find the site adequate for the existing home, which meets all setbacks, and I think you can also find it to be adequate for the addition of a garage, which again meets setbacks and is compliant as to coverage, as shown there on the site plan. As to compatibility of size, excuse me, the neighborhood was developed under prior zoning. Pardon me, but we have the second largest lot in the entire neighborhood, and again, much larger than any others on Pine Tree itself. And what is there now is both modest and compatible. If you approve the special permit, it will remain compatible. The addition of a garage, while increasing the size of the house overall, the gross floor area is certainly reasonable. It remains compatible, and it meets, again, all dimensional requirements. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, the only nonconformity is the lot size, so there is none. There is no increase in nonconformity. It is a Bjorklund case, and it is certainly not a McMansion. And again, we had previously told this board that we would be back for a garage. As to suitability of site, impact on natural environment, the site has been developed for residential use since before 1972. There are no wetlands or environmental issues. As to scale, siting, mass, views, and vistas, mass doesn't really apply to the house that Steve Smith built for or rebuilt for Gene and Linda, which is a fairly classic full cape, although with dormers. It doesn't have any impact on views and vistas. And again, was cited to allow for a compliant garage, excuse me, and I think you can find the design to be appropriate with the trim to match the house. Several neighbors have reviewed and are supportive. There's no impact on views and vistas. Compatibility remains the same as the adequacy of water and sewer. Town water at Title V for 3 bedrooms. There's no change. We've had discussions with Judy Giorgio of the Board of Health. Applicants are certainly happy to execute a covenant establishing that what is proposed to be Gene Richards' study and Linda Richards' sewing room will not be used as a bedroom, so there are no issues there. There's no impact on traffic flow and safety, noise, litter, or otherwise. The issue, as you know, is whether constructing a garage, which will be completely compliant as to dimensional and bulk requirements of our zoning bylaw, and thus without any change in setbacks or increase in nonconformity, is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing conforming house on a nonconforming lot. Bjorklund itself was deferential to the construction of garages, and this small but useful garage with a room over is a simple and understandable goal. The Richards anticipate selling their house in Western Massachusetts relatively soon, hope to be down here as full-time residents, and this having a garage will obviously be useful for winter occupation. It can be constructed again in complete compliance with the bylaw. So given the criteria in the plans, I think you can find the addition of a garage which meets all setback and other requirements is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. There are, as the chair will read, a couple of letters from supportive abutters. There is one who has a couple of questions, and if the chair and the members think it's appropriate, I'd be certainly happy to respond to those when the time comes, and I thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone here today who would like to speak in favor of this application?
There's no one to speak in favor.
Okay, then I'll read the correspondence. The first is from Judith Giorgio, health agent for the town. She writes on 10/26, "I've reviewed the plan to renovate. The proposed studio opens directly into the garage with an open railing and therefore does not meet the definition of a bedroom. I would recommend a deed restriction be placed on the dwelling, restricting the house to 3 bedrooms for future reference." This is a letter from Rita Priori, 26 Pine Tree Road. On October 9th, she writes, "I've been advised of the details of the proposed project by the owners, Linda and Jean Richards. As a neighbor, I have no objections to the project. And we have a note, this is from Priscilla Kent. She writes on October 9th, "I've been advised of the details of a proposed project at 27 Pine Tree Road. As a neighbor, I have no objections to this project. And then we have a longer letter from Frank and Whitney Heavey, 97 Mule Creek Road. On October 25th, they write, "We are year-round residents living at 94 Mill Creek, directly east of the applicant's backyard. The back of our house faces their backyard. Our dining room and deck look at the back corner of their house, where their AC compressor is located. We are supportive of their application to build an addition. However, we would like to kindly ask for assurances that the screening between our properties be restored to the condition before the applicants rebuild their house, and moved it closer to our property line 5 years ago, and the noise from the AC compressor be dampened. The healthiest, tallest 30 feet and most consequential of the screening trees between our yards were taken down during the last construction and not replaced until this summer. Almost 5 years after the new house was built closer to our property line, with 2 little 3-foot trees. We have been concerned for years that the applicants are not keeping up with the maintenance of the remaining and less healthy screening trees on their property, and have let them become overrun with vines and disease, so much that we are at risk of losing even more screening between our properties. We did not object to their construction 5 years ago, but are very disappointed that in addition to taking down the most critical screening, they placed their new AC compressor in a back corner of their house that is closest to our deck. And now the noise of the compressor echoes off their house and impacts the enjoyment of our backyard and deck, even when they are not in residence. We did not oppose their first project to rebuild and move closer to our property line. We are supportive of their current application to build an addition, but would respectfully ask that the applicants for the following to be done in a timely manner. 1, maintain the existing trees to ensure their health and suitable screening value. 2, replace the small trees planted this summer with larger, more mature trees to provide better screening. And 3, dampen the noise generated by the AC compressor by means of insulation, sound blanket, or other means." That was Frank and Whitney Heavey, 94 Mill Creek Road. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak either against this or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
There is no one to speak with questions or that is in opposition.
Mr. Litchfield?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To briefly respond, when I became aware of Mr. Heavey's letter, I reached out to Mr. and Mrs. Richards. They were very unhappy to learn of his concern about the rear yard, which of course doesn't relate to this garage, but they are certainly willing to work with Mr. and Mrs. Heavey on, discussing what appropriate planting would be there. Similarly, they had no idea that the air conditioning compressor, which meets setbacks, that it was an issue, so they will look into a baffle or some other kind of noise abating apparatus. They and I, however, note that notwithstanding the Heavey's concerns about some things on the opposite side of where the garage is proposed, that the Heavies had no concerns about the garage for which we're here today. I thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Dave?
I have no questions, Dave.
Randy?
No questions.
Paul?
No questions.
Lee?
No questions.
Ginny?
I have no questions.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that?
I vote yes.
All votes yes?
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. Okay, deliberations. Lee?
Well, I have no issues with this addition of the garage. I think it looks like a good project. It meets all our criteria. So I will be voting in favor.
I think it certainly meets our criteria and is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
No, it's a nice-looking project, and I support it.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues, and I'd also like to comment that, to commend the Richards on being willing to work with the neighbor, even though the setbacks on that side are all meet the requirements of zoning bylaw. So I think it's nice on their part to offer to straighten those things out. But this is certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Improve it.
Ginny?
I agree with my colleagues. I have nothing else to add.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I think there's plenty of room on the property to handle construction of the garage, so I would simply say that all construction activity and that vehicle shall be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Other than that, I don't see a need for restrictions.
Dave Veach seconds.
I vote yes.
Paul votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. That's a
Thank you very
unanimous
much.
vote. Thank you, Mr. Litchfield. Okay, Sarah, I think we're back to 23-088.
Application number 23-088, Fortune LLC, care of James M. Norcross Esquire. P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 51 Elephant's Lane, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16C, Block 33, Lot 9A. The applicant proposes to install an exterior mechanical system appliance, generator, 11.2 feet from the road where a 25-foot setback is required, and 2.6 feet from the westerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The proposed generator will be located next to existing AC condensers, which are located at 18.7 feet from the road and 2.8 feet from the westerly abutter. The lot contains 9,113 square feet in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Good afternoon, Jamie Norcross representing John Rourke and Brooke Thomas, the owners of the property. The proposal today is to install a generator. They purchased the property, it'll be a year ago in December, and the proposed location will be, go this way, there we go. Will be right here. You see the concrete pad and proposed generator. This location was chosen for a couple of reasons. First, this is the area of the existing AC unit, so the thought process again was to put all the mechanicals together. According to their contractor, it's also the best location in terms of connecting everything on the interior of the property. And then finally, it's sort of tucked into the corner here. From Elephant, it's screened with a tree, so it's not overly visual from the street. And there's also this stockade fence that you see here that runs along the neighbor's property. So it provides, again, a visual barrier as well as muffling some of the noise from the generator. So that's the proposal in front of you, just for the generator. Happy to run through the criteria if you'd like. Okay.
Not all of them, just.
I'll bounce around to the relevant
All right.
ones. Adequacy of the size of the site. Again, we are within the setback, but we're in the area of the existing AC units, and we don't think it'll have a substantial impact at all on any of the neighboring properties. Compatibility of the size of the proposed structure. We're not increasing the structure itself, so that's really not applicable in this case. Extent of the proposed increase in non-conforming nature of the structure or use. It will be located slightly closer than the AC units to the street setback and to the west lot line, but we think it's really a negligible increase in this instance. Suitability of the site, we think it's suitable for the proposed use. As I mentioned, it'll be located behind an existing stockade fence, which should reduce concerns relative to visual impact and noise. In terms of the natural environment, there's no wetlands in the area. The entire property is in the floodplain, however, but we don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the natural environment in terms of vegetation, wetlands, or stormwater runoff. Impact of scale, siting, and mass. Again, I don't think there's any negative impact on neighborhood visual character, and it's being located in an area that really reduces any impact for the streetscape or the neighbor's property. Compatibility of the proposed use with neighboring uses. The neighborhood is a mixture of commercial and residential uses, and therefore the installation of a generator is compatible with both of those. 7 and 8 are not applicable. Noise and litter. The generator is not going to cause any additional litter for the neighborhood. And again, I think the noise concerns, if the generator is kicked on, are mitigated with the location there, with the vegetation and the existing stockade fence. 10 and 11 are not applicable. 12, again, as I mentioned, we are in the floodplain, but I'd suggest the installation of a generator is not the type of expansion that will impact the impervious area of the site in a negative fashion. So that would be our presentation. I guess in summary, we don't believe the installation of the generator is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this project?
There's no one to speak in favor.
Okay, and there's no correspondence, so I won't read that.
I think
Is
there
there
was.
anyone here?
Oh, there's
Oh.
one.
Sorry, that was to sign. This is the new one.
Well, there is correspondence, okay. Thursday, October 26th, John Rourke. We wholeheartedly support ZBA application by our neighbors at 51 Lane, Port Fortune LLC, for the installation of standby generator. Automatic permanently installed generators are a key tool for adverse weather preparation, are invaluable for the protection of life and property in the case of extended power outages. Perhaps even more importantly, they are substantially safer for both the homeowner and the neighbors than portable gasoline-fueled generators. The severity of weather appears to be only worsening over time, and I applaud the applicant for their foresight and preparation. Please call if I can help. And that is from Robert and Pamela Villay at 47. Then we have a note from the Conservation Commission, Crystal Keon, Administrative Assistant. She writes, the project has not been submitted to the Conservation Commission. Applicant needs to contact the Conservation Division for the recommended filing. And that's it. Okay. Questions from the board? Ginny?
Well, Jamie, you already answered one of my questions, which was how do you pronounce that? Eliphamet, is that what you?
I've heard both.
Oh, okay.
But, so I may not be right, but I usually go with the left of it.
No, my only question is, did you have any follow-up to the comment from Conservation?
Yes, so unfortunately, there was a miscommunication between the contractor and Clark Engineering as to the filing, so it didn't make it in its normal course. I believe it's next Wednesday, they're going in for a request for a determination of applicability. It's likely it's only gonna require an administrative review, given the limited impact, as opposed to a full notice of intent filing, but that is in the works at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't look like there's really any other place to go. I was curious, was it just not contemplated at the time that the AC units were put in there? And I think it was 2018, maybe the renovations looked like they were done.
They bought a year ago December,
Oh, okay.
so we're not really certain. We saw, the AC units have been there longer than that. Only reason- When they purchased the property, there was a site plan that was passed around from the then owner from 2015, and there were AC units in that area, or in that location, so, but I'm not sure exactly when they were first installed, but, my folks, they're in Florida part of the year, and they're up here, and just given the location, they thought it'd be beneficial to have a generator, given the potential loss of electricity.
Yeah, okay. The field card didn't note the recent sale, so I didn't see that, but thank you for clarifying. No other questions.
Lee,
I have no questions.
Paul,
No questions.
No question.
Dave,
Jamie, is this gonna have to be elevated above the floodplain elevation?
I don't believe so. I don't know if
Jay, no?
can-
No?
If it's not part of a substantial improvement, it wouldn't.
Oh,
need
right, okay.
to be
Yeah.
It's
'Cause
recommended, but
it
no.
probably, yeah, I would say it's probably recommended, but it's,
My client tells me I guess the area closest to the boatyard is if there's any water on the property, that's generally where it's found in terms of some potential floodwaters, but it doesn't get into generally this area of the property so far, but.
well, I mean, I think it would be better for the neighbors and everything that it's not elevated in that
Right,
location,
yeah.
but,
Sound, yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Lee,
Well, obviously, it's a tight area. The AC.
sorry, Lee, we need to vote. Oh, sure.
Oh, yes.
Paul votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
Yes, okay. Lee,
Okay. Tight area. The AC units are already there. I'm not sure there's another spot for those, so, for the generator, so I would be in favor of this.
I agree with Lee's comments.
And as do I.
Yeah, and absent any communication from the immediate neighbor or objection, I go along with it. I think it's a not substantially more detrimental and meets our criteria, so I will support it.
yeah, and I think down there, everybody kind of rolls with a punch for one another,
Yeah, I think so.
because you got to do that.
This is an extraordinary property. The house is an amazing house, yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I guess I'll ask, when do you expect to do this work, Jamie?
We have to go through conservation, so probably over the next couple months.
All right, so it'll be done before we're into summertime.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yep.
There's obviously plenty of room on that road for any kind of construction, right? There's no
Yeah,
room.
Nothing but room, yeah.
All right, I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
And Dave Veach seconds.
Lee,
I vote yes.
All votes yes?
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes, unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Jamie. Okay. What do we have, Sarah?
We have application number 23-090, Peter and Catherine Wildman, care of Alex Mazzio. P.O. Box 1771, Brewster, Mass. 02631, owner of property located at 30 Ellis Street, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 10D, Block 59, Lot D76. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling and proposed addition comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,264 square feet, 8.6%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,092 square feet, 14.3%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 14,681 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Gentlemen, if you'd introduce yourselves, please.
Good afternoon, I'm Alex Mazio, builder, representing Peter and Catherine.
I'm Kathy Wildman.
I'm Peter Wildman.
Proposed is, if we can put the site plan on, please. Proposing to build addition of 2,092 square feet to existing building, which will be one floor addition with the foundation. Foundation plan will have a garage with the playroom, and the first floor addition will have a bedroom with the living room area. The main reason why we want to build the addition is because of them moving permanently to Chatham area, and they don't have enough living space, clearly. The current actual living area is a little bit smaller. It is not 12, it's 1,147 square feet. I checked it, it was miscalculated by the site plan people, and it's pretty small to fit in and have comfortable living. And you can't really access the basement from the inside of the house. You have to walk outside and open the door and access your stored items. So that will allow us access the basement from the first floor and give much more needed livable space. And it will improve look of the house, because there will be, we're gonna try to keep looking like it's one unit. There was no addition. And it will have a beautiful landscaping around it, retaining wall, so it will look much better. As you can see on elevation, it looks basically like there was no addition added. As you can see on the site plan here, it will be, we're gonna build a retaining wall with nice stairs around, and there will be nice brushes and trees planted around to improve landscape. And if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer all of them.
Okay. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
I see no one to speak in favor.
Okay. One piece of correspondence from Judith Giorgio, health agent for the town. She writes on 10/24, I have reviewed the plan to renovate. The plan as proposed does not add septic flow to the existing 3-bedroom property. The plan is acceptable to the health division. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak either against this or has a specific question?
I think there were letters admitted from the neighbors. No?
And I see no one in opposition or with a question.
So, questions from the board. Paul?
No questions.
Randy?
I have no questions.
I have no questions, Dan.
Ginny?
I missed what you said at the beginning about something was wrong on the site plan. What was that?
Well, the actually current floor plan of current building is actually smaller than 1,200.
Okay.
It's under 1,200, it's 1,147 square feet.
Okay, just, I didn't catch that. I don't have any other questions.
No questions.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that, Lee?
I vote yes.
Paul votes yes.
Yes,
Beach votes yes.
And I vote yes, okay. Deliberations? Ginny?
I have had no questions, no concerns. We visited yesterday, the site plan. It looks like a wonderful project and much-needed extra space. So it meets all of our criteria, and I would just say good luck.
Thank you.
I agree with Ginny. It looks like a good project.
Certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, so I think I'll vote in favor of it.
I agree with everybody else.
And so do I.
And for the lady of the household, aren't you sad? You won't be hauling that laundry down into the basement
Down and out the front.
every day.
I know. I'm gonna look, you know.
Okay,
I will move to approve the application as submitted. In terms of when you're going to do your construction work, what are your thoughts?
Once we get approved, I'm gonna submit building permit application and then planning to start sometime by the end of November.
Will you be able to contain your vehicles and activity on site?
Yes, we use the trailer, so we're gonna park trailer with all equipment on the site, and then we have a van that can bring more than one employee on the site, and we're just gonna transport them there.
Okay.
And we know our neighbors, so we can park on the neighbors that don't live here.
All right. Well, it sounds like maybe the standard conditions would apply. I'll move to approve the application on the condition that all construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction would be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds.
okay. Need a vote on that? Lee?
I vote yes.
All vote yes.
Yes,
Veach votes
I
yes.
vote yes, that's a unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you. We're gonna jump around just a hair here. We're gonna go to 23-093.
Application number 23-093, Judith and David Doino, 30 Mount Vernon Street, Boston, Mass. 02108. Owners of property located at 186 Strong Island Road, also shown in the town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 13M, Block 45, Lot C48. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the expansion of the existing deck. The existing deck is nonconforming in that it is located 15.9 feet from the easterly abutter. The proposed deck will be nonconforming in that it will be located 14.3 feet from the easterly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 29,075 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Hello, my name is David Doino, my wife Judy Doino. We live at 186 Strong Island Road. The house is 30 years old at this point and battered by wind and rain and storms and ready for new roof, new shingles, new decks, new windows, etc. This is actually our second presentation to the board. We were here on September 14th and approved for the majority of the work that we want to undertake at the house. This little side deck, I'll call it an addendum to that same application. We just didn't quite have all our paperwork put together at that time. But we're trying to just get this then finished off. Would you like me to read through the criteria of the, or are you? Up to you. I mean,
Okay.
This is a very small side deck. There is an existing deck there already. We're making a slight extension to it so we can open a doorway out onto that deck. Yes, thank you for
Yep.
that area.
We know
out.
what you were gonna do, so, okay.
Okay. We are not cutting down any trees or bushes or affecting vegetation in any way. There's no effect on the septic field. There's no effect.
All right,
Okay.
okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application?
There is no one to speak in favor.
Okay. Is there, well, I'll read the correspondence. Judith Giorgio, health agent for the town, writes, "Hi, Sarah, I have no comments or concerns about this proposal." Then we have a note from Crystal Keon. She's the Conservation Administrative Assistant. And she writes on October 3rd, "The Conservation Commission has received an administrative review application that is pending the ZBA approval. The project as proposed will be conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Project Act and the Town of Local Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 272, and the regulations promulgated thereunder." And that's the extent of the correspondence. And I don't think there's anybody who wishes to speak against it, but I'll ask, is there anybody on Microsoft Teams or here that wishes to speak against it in any way?
There is not.
Okay?
Well, clearly, it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. We've seen this property recently in September. I would move to approve it as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds.
I might say I would add any conditions that we may have had on the original.
Parking off the road.
Parking off-site, yeah. So we could do the standard, all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. So I'll move to approve it on that basis.
Dave Veach seconds.
I vote yes.
All vote yes?
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. That's a unanimous decision.
I'd also
Thank you
just
very
like-
much.
Just comment on what a great job of presentation you've done in both of your packets. And we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Application number 23-091, K&M 2021 Investment LLC, care of Kevin Boyer, P.O. Box 21, West Barnstable, Mass. 02668. Owner of property located at 86 Highland Avenue, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15E, Block 21, Lot 34. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of additions. The existing dwelling and proposed additions will comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 989 square feet, 6.4%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,107 square feet, 13.6%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 15,534 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Boyer, General Contractor, B&D Custom Builders, representing K&M Investments, Kate and Mike Joseph. I wish I had just recorded Bill Litchfield's presentation on Pine Street, because that is exactly our situation with only one additional element, and that is that we've been in front of the Old Kings Highway Commission and have received not only an approval, but a tremendous number of compliments with the project as well. I'm happy to go through all of the criteria individually if you'd like. I think the best way to summarize is that we took great efforts to maintain setbacks in accordance with current bylaws on side lot line, rear lot line, front lot line, et cetera. We are under the current requirements as it relates to lot coverage as well. Again, I'm more than happy to go through the criteria individually if you'd like.
I have no questions.
I have no questions.
No, I have no questions.
I have a question. Sarah, can you put that picture back up of what we just were looking at? Okay, so. The bottom picture is the front of the house,
Correct,
okay? And the top picture is the side,
correct,
the northwest side,
correct.
which is the streetscape side, essentially. I mean, the front and the side,
This is the, right here, this is the front of the house,
yep.
and that's the side of the house, up this one.
Which is when you're driving down the road, that's what you see. You really don't see the back, and you really don't see the, what would that be, the southwest side.
Correct.
So, I watched the historic tape. I love the Foursquare. And I know that they gave a unanimous approval, but I'm just struggling with the height of the addition. I know that you meet all the dimensional requirements, but can you just confirm for me the recess on the front, the northwest side, it is recessed, and that was a question that Historic had asked.
Right.
Because they really like to preserve the integrity of the historic house. And then so can you confirm that? That's question
Sure.
number one.
What might add to the confusion and is the fact that we're actually looking to construct the project in two separate phases. The first phase is limited to the rear of the property. We're going to be doing the master bedroom suite. The Josephs require a first floor master bedroom for health reasons. And so we're looking for approval for not only that rear elevation, which we're submitting a building permit on, but also approval for what is envisioned to go on the side that you were referring to, the mudroom side. It is set back, and one of the things that maybe is a tiny bit deceiving is that it's set back not only 7.5 feet from the corner, but also that's 7.5 feet here, but then there's an additional 3 feet and then the whole front porch. So it's pushed back quite a distance. For those of you that have been out on the site, it's beyond where the fence is at this point. One of the other things that we also did in anticipation of our building permit application is calculate all the height issues too, and that's part of our submittal. So Ryder and Wilcox did prepare an analysis of the addition as it relates to height, and it does meet all the requirements.
Yeah, I know it meets the requirement, but it is the same height. It's actually a little bit bigger just because of the elevation, the building. So it's recessed back roughly 12 feet according to what?
A little bit more than that because of the front porch.
Well, I'm not including the front porch. I'm just sensitive to the fact that it's a historic building. It's a beautiful Foursquare. That's a nice street with a lot of smaller homes, well, not really smaller, but not large homes. This is really a substantial alteration. You meet all the setbacks. I'm moving into deliberations, by the way, is that okay? So you meet all of those, but that's not the only thing. There's this thing, the streetscape is what I was kind of struck by.
If I could address that, a couple of things
Okay.
that come to mind, and kind of go back in time to our presentation in front of Historic. There are a number of houses on that street that have skylights. We made sure not to include skylights. There are a couple of houses on that street, literally across the street, that are substantially larger as it relates in particular with lot coverage and are very contemporary. There's a Foursquare, a few buildings down, that underwent a number of years ago an extensive renovation and is far more contemporary. So we really did try to be respectful of the historic elements and maintain that aesthetics. And I would say in particular, in comparison to the other properties that are on the street, the architect did really a fantastic job. Again, I'm comparing it to properties with skylights and with more contemporary elements, and I think under those circumstances, as I mentioned, we received not just a unanimous approval, but a number of compliments on the historic aspect from a design standpoint. But I respect your concerns.
Yeah, I'm not voting today, but I just wanted to share my thoughts that I feel like it's a beautifully done house. I mean, it's just perfection. And it's a large house going larger and really substantially larger. I mean, the increase of building coverage, you're still within, and that's your right, is 113% increase. So that's a large,
No
it's a large.
question.
And so you're expanding the width of the proposed front of the house, definitely the length of the proposed house, by, over almost 60% across the front, almost 50% in the back. I mean, I'm not trying to get hung up on these numbers, but I do feel like the front and the side, which are really shown in that picture, are really, it's a drastic change to what was there. That's what I was struggling with. I want to borrow a phrase I've heard Randy say a couple times. I don't mean to be the skunk at the picnic, but I just was wondering, if the height was there consideration to not going all the way to the height of the other one? Typically, when you recess and you're adding an addition, it's both recessed and slightly lower.
Right. This had to do with how the tying back in with the Foursquare, the architect, her estimation was that was the most accurate way of doing it as it relates to maintaining the architectural continuity and again, tying back in with the original Foursquare design.
Oh, the Foursquare.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's outside of our purview, but, okay, that's all I had.
Lee?
I have no questions.
I think we're done with questions. I'll move to close the hearing and move into, excuse me.
We do have two pieces of correspondence, one from the health agent and one
Okay.
from the historic commission. Would you like me to read them?
Yes.
We have an email from Christina Bassett. She's the liaison to the Historical Commission. On October 24th, she wrote, "The CHC heard the application for 86 Highland Avenue on June 20th, 2023, and found the home to be historically significant, and thought that the proposed changes did not materially diminish the home's historical significance, so they did not impose a demolition delay." In a memo dated October 24th, 2023, the health agent wrote, "I've reviewed the plan to renovate the property. The plan as proposed does not add septic flow to the existing three-bedroom property. The plan is acceptable to the health division."
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
I vote yes.
Paul votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
Dave votes yes. And Dave?
Well, I still have some questions. So,
Okay.
yeah. I'm troubled by this because of the more than doubling of size from 989 square feet up to 2107, which I think is really pushing it on that lot. Is it too much? Maybe,
See,
maybe. But I wanted to bring that up for the others to consider it. Yeah.
So I really like the way the architect did the rendering.
Thank you.
And I think it does look like a four-square, but I also think it's very big, and it's a huge change. I'm not quite convinced that it's substantially detrimental. A lot of times, I think things are detrimental, but I can't go so far as to say substantially. I think it's bigger than a lot of the properties on that street. Am I wrong? Or-
You know,
It looks
obviously,
bigger.
I have a biased perspective, but I think of the houses across the street that seem to literally, there are two of them, seem to take up the entire lot. And what's not taken up by structure is taken up by hardscape.
Yeah.
I would suggest that in our particular case, it's just the opposite. And I would emphasize that the house, the addition that we're envisioning towards the right side,
Right.
the mudroom side, is set back quite a distance.
Yeah.
And once more, if we're looking to compare on that street itself as it relates to architecture, I'd point out another 3 or 4 houses there that have far more dramatic changes to certainly the house that is next door, I believe, to the little church there, the gray one that's absolutely beautiful, but that's not a 4-square anymore.
No, and I think the lot can probably handle it, so.
You know, we are maintaining, in fact, once more, and I apologize for repeating
No, you
myself,
are,
but
yeah.
we made a real concerted effort to meet current criteria as it relates to setbacks. you know,
No,
being
of course,
more, you know.
but in the past, people have done that, but it's still found to be too much for a lot. But I don't think it is in this case, but I
thank
think it's on the cusp.
Okay, thank you.
Before we continue with deliberations, maybe we can finish the vote on the moving to deliberations. So I think we had all votes except Dave. Dave Nixon needs to vote with respect to our closing the hearing and moving into deliberations.
We all, I think we voted, and I would second that. Let's
All right,
take
let's
the vote
do
again.
that vote. Okay, Randy, you vote?
Yes.
And Vich votes yes.
I vote yes.
And I vote yes?
I vote no.
Okay. So that carries 4 votes to 1?
So I deliberated, so maybe we'll go to the next person.
You've deliberated, Dave Veach.
So deliberations, yeah, so I hear the concerns of my fellow board members, but in this case, you know, I think it is important to consider that they do meet the dimensional requirements of the bylaw. It looks to me like that the roof of that addition is stepped down slightly from the ridge, from the top of the ridge. And especially considering I'm not sure how I want to say this, some of the architectural treatments that have taken place on buildings along that street, I can't find this to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood at all. I think it meets the criteria of the bylaw. I think it meets our criteria. It's not it will not negatively affect the views, vistas, the streetscape, in my judgment. Certainly not in comparison to I mean, some of the other treatments have been, some I would consider attractive, others maybe not so much personally, but the street has seen change, and this, in that regard, I don't see this as a negative change at all. It's not substantially more detrimental, and it meets our other criteria, so I will be supporting it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not voting today, as I mentioned, but I was struggling with criteria 5, the impact of the mass on the neighborhood. I do disagree with you. There is one large house, and it's the contemporary one across the street, a little farther up, and it's odd looking there on that street. That street has a lot of beautiful, smaller, historic era homes. The other big house on that is the rectory and the church, and it's a small street. So anyway, I would be, I'm struggling with that because I think that it is, whether it's substantially more detrimental, I'm not sure, and my colleagues seem to think that it isn't, and I'm not voting, but I really think that it's perfection right now, and a more modest increase. I understand the homeowners, it's their right to have more space, and they want to add a downstairs bedroom, but it seems like it's the doubling of the size is more than I would probably support if I were voting.
So I agree. It's a beautiful house, the way it is right now. It's a special street as well, I think. I personally wouldn't change a thing, but I do appreciate the homeowners wanting to change and add some more space, particularly a first floor bedroom. It's still a very big house, but I don't think it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And I would support it, even though I'm not real happy about it.
Thank you.
Well, I think I agree with my colleagues, Randy and Dave and Lee. It is a substantially larger house, but at the same time, I think it will fit into the neighborhood, given the polyglot that's there. So I will support it.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted with, I would assume, our standard conditions, given the location, which would be that all construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work will be permitted on weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds.
Well, I'm going to have a last word on this. I don't feel good about this house. I don't feel good about the size of it. I don't feel good that it isn't going to be used as some sort of a B&B, but I have no proof to that. I just don't like it. And I just feel that it's wrong for us to encourage such a magnification of a house of this nature that's in a great location. Great location. So I will be voting no.
I don't know if it matters, but I can assure you that the owner has no intention whatsoever to use it as a B&B. In fact, the reason that the project was broken up into phases was specifically because of a early spring deadline so that they could use it for the summer. The owner, as I alluded to earlier, has some health issues, and they didn't want to lose another summer in Chatham. So that's why it's broken up as it is, specifically because I couldn't give them the assurance that I could do the entire project prior to spring, and they didn't want to miss out on Chatham in the summer. So this is absolutely definitively for their use.
Thank you. Okay, so let's have a vote.
All right.
Lee, vote yes or no?
I vote yes.
Paul?
I vote yes with the conditions I've already set forth.
Yes,
Randy?
yes.
Dave Veach?
Yes, I vote yes, and also would, just out of, and probably haven't looked at the floor plans and things, but I wouldn't discourage the owners from opting out of Phase 2 if they felt that they were happy with what they had.
Well, that would be a good solution.
Well, just, I mean.
Yeah, no.
Just saying.
Yeah, okay, and I vote no. So you win,
Thank you.
4 in favor, 1 against.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you. Have a nice afternoon. Thank you all.
Do we have anything else to discuss today?
I don't think so. I'll move
I
to
don't think
adjourn.
so.
Dave Veach seconds.
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote,
Ginny votes yes.
All right.
okay.
We adjourned at 5:02.
5:02. Why so early?
Because we started at 2:30.